Hi there, Brittany from Canadian Craft Crate. Today I'm going to show you some tips and tricks for painting to avoid bleeding when you're painting a wooden sign or really anything. So the biggest tip that I have found is painting the first layer as your background color. So say for this sign I've stained it a gray. My first layer I'm going to do gray. So what that does is it seals your stencil so that your paint the colors that you put on top don't bleed underneath the stencil. So we'll go ahead and do that. Also, the best thing I've found to paint with are makeup sponges. It seems crazy, but they put on a nice thin layer and it doesn't give you like a textured look. It makes it look nice and smooth. So you dip your sponge in the paint and kind of rub it off so that your sponge is just damp. It's not soaking wet. And then up and down. I've done a lot of paint parties with people and they tend to try to rub with the sponge. That's not what we want to do, not the look we're going for. So just make sure you're dabbing up and down. So you want to do this all over your sign, anywhere that you're going to be putting paint. This coat, I don't want to say that I do it thick, but I definitely do it thicker than the next few coats. You can see my sponge is still just wet, or still just damp, it's not wet. So I wouldn't say that I'm putting on a thick coat, but you want to put on thick enough that it's going to actually seal your stencil. If you don't put it on thick enough at this point, then it's not going to seal it, and what we're doing is kind of a waste of time. So you will learn as you go, you know, how thick you should be putting it on, and trial and error. So once you're done, kind of just go around and look and make sure that you haven't missed any spots or any spots that should be a little bit thicker. I'm pretty happy with that, so I'm just gonna let it and leave it and let it dry for a little while. If you're going as thin as you should, it should pretty much already be dry. Like up here is pretty much already dry, but I'm just gonna leave it for a minute just to make sure, and then we will come back and finish painting. Okay, our first coat should be all dry, so now we're going to move on and just continue painting with any colors that we like. I normally give it 1 to 2 coats of the top color. You can do whatever you feel looks good. I find 1 coat gives it kind of like a rustic look, 2 coats is a little bit more solid. So it kind of depends what you're going for. For the sake of the video, I'm probably just going to do 1 coat, and then I might take a sanding block and just kind of scuff it up, make it look really rustic. That's the fun thing about these is you can customize them any way that you like, with colors, with different techniques, with different looks. The options are endless, so it makes it really fun. Okay, so when you're all done painting, you just kind of want to have a look over it again. Make sure you didn't miss any spots, make sure you're all happy with it. And then just let it dry for about 5-10 minutes before you remove the stencil. You can remove it wet, but there's room for error and you might, drop the stencil onto the board and then you're fixing problems. So it's easier just to wait 5 minutes and let it do its thing. Okay, so it's pretty dry, so I'm just gonna take my stencil off. So when you take your stencil off, don't freak out, the centers are still gonna be in there. You just need to take your tweezers and go back through and take the centers out. There we go. If I could find my tweezers, there we go. So just be careful when you're doing this that you're not scratching the paint. So this is the reverse weed part that I was talking about here. So when you take the butt off, it's the color of the board. And again, you don't need tweezers for this. I have done it with toothpicks in a pinch. There we go. So you can see that I probably should have done 2 coats, but because of the video, I did 1. But I like a rustic look, so once it's completely dry, it's still a little bit tacky. I'm just gonna take a sanding block and just go through and give it a light sanding so it looks like it's meant to be rustic. And that's it, that's all she wrote.